Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going on a deep dive into generative AI in Japan.
Generative AI.
Yeah. Specifically, we have this really interesting discussion paper from the Japan Fair Trade Commission,
Okay.
JFTC,
JFTC.
from October 2024.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating how they're already looking ahead, trying to make sure there's a level playing field as generative AI takes off.
It really highlights how this isn't just about cool tech, but how this tech could reshape the whole landscape,
How competitive
the
landscape.
competitive landscape. Yeah.
And so they break it down. The JFTC breaks the generative AI market into 3 layers:
Okay.
infrastructure models and applications.
Right.
So let's start at that kind of foundational level, the infrastructure level.
Yeah.
What are some of the potential issues there?
Well, you need, to train these really powerful AI models, you need these specialized computer chips called GPUs.
GPUs, okay.
And NVIDIA pretty much dominates that market right now. And so this potential for limited access to GPUs could be a real bottleneck, especially for smaller companies.
Yeah, especially for smaller companies trying to break into the AI scene.
Yeah.
It's already hard to compete with the big players, but if you can't even get the essential tools,
Right.
it's almost impossible.
Exactly. And it's not just about getting the GPUs, it's about affording them.
Oh, right, yeah.
If a few companies control the supply,
Yeah.
they can really control the prices,
Yeah.
making it even harder for those smaller companies to compete.
So what could the JFTC do about a situation like that?
Well, they could explore policies that encourage more competition in that GPU market,
Right.
perhaps by supporting domestic companies that are, developing alternative chips, or by looking into ways to make these resources more accessible to those smaller players.
So kind of leveling the playing field a little bit.
Exactly, creating an environment where innovation can thrive.
Makes sense. The JFTC paper also talks about data, right?
Yeah,
Especially for models that are specifically focused on Japanese.
absolutely. That's another really critical piece of the infrastructure puzzle.
Okay.
You can have the most powerful GPU in the world, but if you don't have enough data to train your AI model, it's not going to be very smart.
Right.
The quality and quantity of that data are crucial.
And they emphasize the need for more Japanese language data,
Right.
which is interesting. Could this be an opportunity for Japanese companies?
Absolutely. If they can build these high-quality Japanese language data sets, they could have a real advantage in developing models that are really finely tuned for the nuances of their language and culture.
So give them a leg up.
It could give them a leg up, yeah. Not just domestically, but also in markets where that Japanese language AI is in demand.
But data collection isn't always straightforward. There's copyright issues, privacy concerns, all sorts of legal complexities to navigate.
That's right. And the JFTC is very aware of those concerns.
Okay.
They're encouraging a very careful and balanced approach to data acquisition, making sure that it's done ethically and legally.
So it's not just about getting as much data as possible.
Right.
It's about getting the right data in the right way.
Exactly.
It seems like this is going to be a major area of focus for the JFTC as they develop their policies.
Definitely. And then there's the human element as well, the talent that's needed to build and train these AI models.
The people.
The competition for skilled AI professionals is fierce.
Yeah.
And it's something the JFTC is watching closely.
It's like any field, you need the right people with the right expertise to really make it work.
Right.
Are they concerned that big tech will just snap up all the best talent?
That is a potential concern because big tech companies have vast resources. They can offer these really attractive salaries and benefits, which can make it difficult for smaller companies or research institutions to compete.
Hold on to their people.
Yeah, so the JFTC is thinking about ways to support talent development domestically,
Okay.
perhaps through educational programs or incentives for companies to invest in training.
Interesting. So we've talked about the hardware, the data, and the people, the core elements of the AI infrastructure.
Yeah, the foundation.
What are some of the specific competition concerns that the JFTC highlights?
One of the big ones is this potential for access restrictions.
Okay.
If a company controls a critical piece of that infrastructure, like a dominant GPU supplier or a major cloud computing platform, they could limit access for their competitors.
That sounds like a recipe for stifling innovation.
Exactly. And the JFTC is looking at ways to prevent that.
Okay.
They want to ensure that everyone has a fair chance to compete, regardless of their size or existing market power.
It makes sense. You can't have a healthy AI ecosystem if the playing field is tilted in favor of a few giant players.
Right.
What are some other concerns?
Oh, well, there's this issue of self-preferencing,
Self-preferencing.
where a company might design its AI model to subtly favor its own products or services
Okay.
over those of its competitors.
Interesting.
Imagine a search engine that always ranks its own products at the top,
Right.
even if there are better alternatives available.
Doesn't seem very fair.
Right. It's like playing a game where one player gets to change the rules in their favor.
Yeah.
And the JFTC is concerned about that kind of behavior, and they're looking at ways to ensure that these AI models are used fairly and transparently.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how it's used.
Right.
And the potential impact on competition.
Yeah.
It seems like the JFTC is really trying to get ahead of these issues before they become major problems.
They are. They're encouraging a lot of discussion and collaboration, bringing together experts and companies and policymakers to try to figure out the best way to navigate this rapidly evolving landscape.
We've covered that infrastructure layer and some of the key competition concerns.
Yeah.
Coming up next, we'll dive into the models themselves, the heart of generative AI.
It's going to get even more interesting from here. The models themselves are where things get really exciting.
Oh.
The JFTC paper talks about these different types of models,
Yeah.
from those massive versatile ones to more specialized models for specific tasks.
It's like the difference between a Swiss Army knife and a finely crafted scalpel.
Exactly.
You know, they both have their uses depending on what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and right now a lot of the attention is focused on those large language models.
LLMs.
LLMs. They're the brains behind things like chatbots and AI assistants.
Right.
Able to understand and generate human-like text in a way we've never seen before.
These are the models that are making headlines, writing poems, composing music, even generating code.
Right.
It feels like every day there's a new story about how LLMs are pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
It's a fascinating and rapidly evolving field.
Yeah.
The JFTC paper highlights this intense competition between big tech companies and these leading startups to develop even more powerful LLMs.
Right.
Each one trying to outdo the other in terms of capabilities and performance.
It's like an AI arms race, but instead of building weapons, they're building these incredible tools that can process and generate language.
Yeah.
What does this mean for Japan, though? Are they falling behind in this LLM race?
Not necessarily. While international players might be leading in terms of overall performance, Japanese companies are focusing on developing LLMs that are specifically optimized for the Japanese language,
Right.
creating models that are deeply attuned to the nuances of Japanese grammar, vocabulary, and cultural context.
That makes sense. It's one thing to build a model that can generate grammatically correct English.
Right.
But capturing the subtleties of a language like Japanese is a whole other challenge.
Exactly, and this specialization could give Japanese companies a real edge. Think about the potential for AI-powered translation tools, customer service chatbots, or even creative writing assistants that can truly understand and generate natural-sounding Japanese.
Wow.
There's a huge market for that kind of technology.
It's like they're building custom-designed tools for a very specific audience.
Yeah.
And that could be a significant advantage.
Definitely.
The paper also mentioned something about lightweight models.
Okay.
What are those?
That's another interesting trend, and not all AI models need to be these massive, resource-intensive behemoths. Researchers are developing smaller, more efficient models that can still perform complex tasks but require less computing power and energy to run.
That sounds like a game changer.
It is.
If you can get the same level of performance with a fraction of the resources, it opens up a whole new range of possibilities.
Right. These lightweight models could be deployed on devices with limited processing power, like smartphones or even embedded systems.
Interesting.
This could lead to a proliferation of AI applications that are more accessible, affordable, and sustainable.
It's exciting to think about how this technology is evolving in so many different directions.
Yeah.
But let's move beyond text for a moment. The JFTC paper also mentioned other types of generative AI models, like those that can create images, videos, or even music.
Yes, that's another area where we're seeing incredible progress. This ability to generate realistic and creative content using AI is really transforming fields like art design and entertainment.
We've all seen those mind-blowing AI-generated images that look like they were created by a human artist.
Right.
It's hard to tell what's real and what's not anymore.
That's the power of these models. They're learning to mimic human creativity in ways that were unimaginable just a few years ago.
Yeah.
And the JFTC recognizes that this technology is still in its early stages, with both domestic and international companies pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
It's like the Wild West out there, with everyone experimenting and innovating at a breakneck pace.
Exactly.
What are some of the potential competition concerns the JFTC is looking at in this space?
Well, just like with the infrastructure layer, there's that risk of access restrictions.
Okay.
If a company controls a key technology or platform for generative AI,
Right.
they could make it difficult for others to compete. Imagine a scenario where a company develops a groundbreaking image generation model and then decides to restrict access to its technology, preventing others from using it or building upon it.
That could really stifle innovation and limit the creative potential of this technology.
Exactly. The JFTC is looking at ways to ensure that these tools remain open and accessible,
Right.
fostering a competitive environment where everyone has a chance to participate.
So it's not just about who can build the best models, it's about who gets to use them and how they're used.
Right.
It seems like a delicate balancing act.
It is. The JFTC is trying to balance the need to protect intellectual property rights with the desire to encourage widespread innovation and competition.
It sounds like they have a tough job ahead of them. Are there any other concerns they're highlighting?
Another one is this potential for bias in these models.
Bias, okay.
Since generative AI models are trained on these massive data sets of existing content, they can sometimes inherit and amplify the biases that exist in that data.
So if the data used to train a model reflects certain stereotypes or prejudices,
Right.
the model itself might generate content that perpetuates those biases.
That's right. And this is a serious concern, especially as generative AI is used to create content that influences our perceptions and decisions.
It could have a real impact.
The JFTC is encouraging developers to carefully consider the data they use
Okay.
and to develop methods for mitigating bias in their models.
So it's not enough to just build these powerful tools.
Right.
It's crucial to ensure that they're used responsibly and ethically.
Absolutely. It's not just about technical progress. It's about using this technology to build a better and fairer world.
And that's a core principle that underlies the JFTC's approach to generative AI.
It is.
So we've explored the infrastructure layer, delved into the fascinating world of AI models, and touched upon some of the key competition concerns.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to the final layer applications.
This is where it gets really interesting because it's all about how generative AI is actually being used in the real world to solve problems, create new products and services, and transform industries.
The application layer, this is where things get real.
Yeah.
We've talked about the building blocks, the infrastructure, and the models, but the applications are really where it all comes to life.
Yeah. It's where we see the rubber meet the road. Generative AI is already being used in so many different ways,
Yeah.
From improving search results and automating tasks to creating personalized learning experiences and even developing new drugs.
And the JFTC paper specifically highlights how big tech companies are integrating generative AI into their existing products and services.
Right.
What are some examples of that?
Well, think about how AI is being used to enhance search engines.
Okay.
Instead of just giving you a list of links, search engines can now generate summaries of complex topics or answer your questions directly, or even create personalized recommendations based on your interests and your search history.
It's like having a research assistant built right into your search engine.
Exactly.
Right? It's not just search. We're seeing AI being integrated into everything from email clients and productivity software to social media platforms and entertainment apps.
Right, and that raises some interesting competition concerns.
Yeah, how so?
Well, if a company with a dominant market position can use AI to further enhance its existing products and services,
it could make it even harder for smaller competitors to catch up.
it's like they're getting a turbo boost from AI,
Yeah.
while smaller companies are still trying to figure out how to get their engines started. The JFTC is aware of this potential issue, and they're looking at whether existing antitrust laws are sufficient to address the challenges posed by generative AI,
Okay.
or if new regulations are needed to ensure a level playing field.
It's a tough challenge. On the one hand, you want to encourage innovation and allow companies to leverage this powerful technology.
Right.
But on the other hand, you don't want to stifle competition and create monopolies.
It's a delicate balance, and the JFTC is taking a very thoughtful and measured approach.
Yeah.
They're gathering information, they're consulting with experts, and they're encouraging open dialogue to make sure they make the right decisions.
One of the concerns they highlight is this potential for tying.
Tying.
Could you explain what that is and why it's a concern?
Sure. Tying is essentially when a company forces you to use one of their products or services in order to access another. In the context of generative AI, this could mean a company that controls a dominant AI model might require its users to also use its cloud computing platform or data storage service.
So it's like saying, you can use our amazing AI model, but only if you also use our other services.
Right. And that could be problematic because it could give that dominant company an unfair advantage and make it harder for competitors to break into the market.
Right. It kind of locks them out.
Exactly. And the JFTC is looking into whether this kind of behavior could stifle competition and innovation in the generative AI ecosystem.
The paper also mentions parallel conduct using AI.
Yeah.
That sounds a little bit like science fiction.
It is a fascinating concept.
Could you explain what that means?
Sure. The idea is that AI systems, especially those that are trained on similar data sets and use similar algorithms, might independently arrive at similar decisions or strategies.
Interesting.
This could lead to a situation where companies without any explicit collusion end up behaving in a way that reduces competition. For example, by setting similar prices or offering similar products.
So it's not that they're intentionally colluding.
Right.
It's that their AI systems are leading them down a similar path.
That's the idea. And it's something that antitrust regulators around the world are grappling with.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Traditional antitrust laws are based on the idea of deliberate agreements between companies.
Right.
But how do you regulate behavior that emerges from the independent decisions of complex AI systems?
That's a tough nut to crack.
Yeah.
It seems like the JFTC is really pushing the boundaries of antitrust thinking here.
They are, and it's important work as generative AI becomes more pervasive. We need to make sure we have the right frameworks in place to ensure that it's used responsibly and ethically.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the 3 layers of the generative AI market.
Right.
The infrastructure, the models, and the applications.
Yeah.
We've looked at the potential benefits of this technology, as well as the competition concerns that the JFTC is grappling with.
It's a rapidly evolving landscape, and there are still many unanswered questions.
For sure.
But one thing is clear. Generative AI is a transformative technology that has the potential to reshape industries and societies.
And the JFTC's proactive approach to addressing the potential competition issues is really commendable.
I agree.
They're not waiting for problems to emerge.
Yeah.
They're getting ahead of the curve, encouraging dialogue, and seeking solutions that will foster innovation and a level playing field.
It's an exciting time to be following this space as generative AI continues to evolve.
Definitely.
It's going to raise profound questions about how we regulate technology, how we protect competition, and how we ensure that the benefits of AI are shared widely.
It's a lot to think about. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into generative AI in Japan.
My pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.